After I obtained a stack of end portal frames and end portal blocks in my hardcore world, I did some thinking about what I could use them for. As I was experimenting, I happened upon a never-before-seen redstoneless method of cross-world item transportation that can instantaneously send your items up to 30 million blocks across your world, and it all relies on vanilla end portal mechanics. In big survival worlds, item transport becomes a huge problem. Your farms are usually thousands of blocks away from your main base, either because you don't want to lose property value by filling your lawn with farms, or because certain farms only work in specific locations. That means every time you want to restock, you have to fly out, run the farm, and then haul all of the drops back home. With one farm, it's just annoying. With dozens, it can become a full-time job. People have come up with all kinds of solutions. Nether travel with piston bolts, or even massive dropper lines like the ones on Psycraft that send items through the nether at crazy speeds. These kinds of solutions can work, but they take tons of resources, tons of time, they're difficult to build, and if you build them wrong, they can cause a ridiculous amount of lag. For most players, they're just too much, so they still move items across their world manually. But there's a much simpler way. Wormholes. Unlike linear conventional travel, wormholes connect 2 points in space and create a path between them that is much shorter than the conventional path, allowing for faster travel. This is where our end portals come in. We can use them to move our items without ever touching them ourselves. If you can get your farm's drops into an overworld end portal, they will appear right here on the obsidian platform. From there, if you send them through the exit portal, they always come out at world spawn. This will work whether the overworld portal you used is 3,000 blocks out or 30 million blocks out. Now we just have to automate it. Obviously, the first step is you're going to have to build a farm next to an end portal and start piping items into it. I'm going to be demonstrating with this sand duper that I have here. The next step depends on where you want your storage system to be. You only have two options. Option 1, you build a storage system in the end. Option 2, you build your storage system at spawn. Personally, I think that building it in the end has greater advantages. The end is already pretty empty, which means that you can build a storage system in a pretty lag-friendly way. Since there are end portals scattered all over your world, whenever you want to grab stuff from your storage, you can just hop into the end and you're there. No matter what you do though, the next steps are basically the same. You need to build some kind of system like this to collect the items from the obsidian platform. Then you can use a simple water stream to move the items either to your storage system in the end, or through the exit portal to spawn. In the end, no matter where you decide to put your chests, all items from every connected farm end up in the end or world spawn. You don't get to put it anywhere else, which is a limitation, but in return, you get instantaneous dimension hopping item transport with basically no moving parts. On top of this, since some farms like iron, cobblestone, and some wood farms can run while loaded without a player around, you can set them up to constantly refill your storage system and never run out. Until just a few days ago, this was about as far as the method went. In my mind, it already seemed kind of revolutionary, but there are a couple problems. One of them was lag. If I went with my plan to run lots of playerless farms indefinitely to get a non-stop flow of useful items to my storage, I would immediately or eventually start to notice my game's performance start to go down. Often, when working with late-game farms, players turn to digging out perimeters to improve not only the farm's lag efficiency, but also its output. I'm not going to go into the technical details, but basically, completely emptying the rendered chunks around the farm and building it as low as possible in the world causes the game's backend to skip work it would normally have to do, and therefore reduces lag. Since I'm going to have upwards of 20 farms constantly running when I do this, I will need at least one perimeter if I want to do all I can to keep my world running smoothly. The problem is, depending on the kind of complex world eater you build to dig out the perimeter, it could take up to 40 hours just to make one. But then I realized there was a simpler way. In all this talk about portals, I hadn't even considered the end gateway. Similarly to end portals, when you send an item through the outer island's gateway, it will pop out of the one on the main island and vice versa. This means that we can use them as an extension of the wormhole system. But mistaken, how does this solve the perimeter problem? Do you see any blocks here? The end is essentially a pre-made perimeter. Even if you need to destroy part of an island, it's already mostly empty space. The world only goes down to y equals 0 rather than y equals negative 64, so there's less to break, and since water and lava don't generate here, it's way easier to clear out. Now, I'm going to show you really quickly how to use the gateways, since it's a little more complex than the end portal. First important thing to know is that the end gateway has very specific places it puts items that go through. It has two priorities it cares about. First, put items and players on the highest available block within range, which is 5 blocks. Then, if there are multiple high blocks that are all the same height, it will put them on the one furthest to the northwest. The second important thing to know is that unlike end portals, gateways have a delay between teleports, about 40 ticks or 2 seconds. This means that no matter how powerful of a farm we hook up to this, only about 1,800 items can go through in an hour. This bottleneck would make the gateways practically worthless if we tried sending large quantities of items through, but if we use shulker loaders to pack the items up and send those through instead, this farm that would normally be sending about 200,000 cobblestone an hour now sends about 115 shulkers instead, so this still totally works. After packing the items up and sending them all through, all that's left is to get the items to our storage. Since we know where the shulkers will appear, we can set up a system similar to what we're using at the spawn platform and then send the items to meet up with the rest. Using this will give us basically the same performance boost we would get from digging a perimeter, but without doing much extra work at all. Now, there are a couple technical details you have to understand to make it work. First, chunk loading. Items can't move through unloaded chunks, so if you want this system to run while you're off somewhere else in the world, you have to keep the relevant chunks loaded. In the end, the only way to do it is with ender pearl stasis chambers. You throw pearls into 6 to 8 bubble columns placed along the path you need to keep loaded, and as long as those pearls exist, those chunks will stay active. That keeps your item streams flowing even if you're in a different dimension. You will also need stasis chambers for your storage system if it's in the end. If you're in a normal survival world and you die a lot, stasis chambers can be pretty annoying to maintain. Ender pearls disappear when you die, forcing you to refill the chamber every single time. I'm in hardcore, so if I die, I'll have a couple other things to worry about, but even in normal survival, I think that throwing half a dozen ender pearls is a pretty small price to pay for the benefits you get from using the system. Second, logging out. When you log off, ender pearls and stasis chambers disappear and stop loading chunks, so in multiplayer, you'll want to have multiple players throw pearls as well. That way, the system keeps running as long as at least one of you is online. There's one more big limitation: structure and biome locked farms. Things like guardian farms and witch farms only work at very specific locations, and those locations are rarely right on top of a stronghold. Normally, you would just have to suck it up and carry stuff from those farms the normal way, but that was before I discovered Snapshot Beta 1.9 Pre-3 1350 and used it in my hardcore world. Because I started my world in Beta 1.9 Pre-3, I actually spawned in with a full stack of end portal frames and a full stack of end portal blocks in my inventory. I can use those end portal frames to literally build custom end portals wherever I want, including right next to ocean monuments or witch huts, which completely solves our problem. An important note here, but though the frames do survive all the way through modern versions, the portal blocks themselves will get deleted from your inventory around 1.7. But placed portal blocks stay forever, so before updating, I ran around a 10,000 by 10,000 block grid around spawn and placed portals every couple thousand blocks. Though completely unnecessary since you can easily build multiple farms to feed into a single stronghold portal without placing extras, that gave me almost 60 extra places where I can feed items into the wormhole network. Those who watched my first hardcore video may remember this creeper farm. In the video, I deliberately never showed the storage system because it was actually already hooked up to an end portal. So this right here is an example of how you could hook this up in your world. Regardless of whether or not you use Beta 1.9 to get these broken items or not, you can still use the naturally generating portals for the same result. The end result is a world where the only time you ever have to visit your farms is to turn them on or off or AFK. Iron, cobblestone, wood, mob drops, anything you can farm, once it's hooked up into the network, it just appears at your end or spawn-based central storage, and you never have to carry bulk items across your world ever again. I'm going to be pushing the limits of this wormhole system over the next few episodes of my hardcore series. I'll be building and connecting dozens of useful farms and creating a wormhole-themed mega-based storage system in the end. If you want to see it, hit the subscribe button and keep an eye out for my next video. I'll also be live streaming a good amount of this as well, so hop in if you want to be a part of it. Also, special thanks to our first and only channel member, Lit Laganza. Your support means a lot. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. For those who are interested in the tutorial for how to get the end portal frames and blocks, I do have one on my channel. It was the very first video I ever made, so the quality's not very great, my mic is terrible, but I do tell you exactly how to do it, so I'm going to link it right here. Okay, bye now for real. I'm going now. I'm gone. I'm done.